Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast. Today, we're joined by Chris Campbell, CIO at DeVry University. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matthew. Glad to be here.
It's great to have you. Before we get too far in, a quick word from our sponsors. Hackers are getting smarter. Is your security keeping up? CyberLink sells industry-leading AI-powered cybersecurity solutions that detect threats in real time, so you know about an attack before the damage is done, not after. Learn more at cyberlinks.com. That's cyber, LYNX.com. And now back to our show. Chris, for those who aren't familiar, can you tell us about DeVry University and your role there as CIO?
Sure. At DeVry University, we're focused on delivering career-aligned education, especially in high-demand technology fields. Our mission really is to help learners build skills that translate directly into the workforce and that will carry them across their career arc. As CIO, I lead our technology, cybersecurity, and digital innovation efforts with a big focus right now on integrating AI into both how we operate and how we prepare our learners for the future of work.
Well, I think those are two really great topics that I think are on everybody's minds, right now. So let's kind of start with how you're going about integrating AI into the teaching, right? How you're preparing students for the AI future.
Yeah. So one of the things we have is our AI commitments that we recently published, and that was that we would be including AI literacy and AI skills in every program and course that we teach, regardless of the area of focus or interest, whether you're in accounting or software engineering. It's not material, right? All of those the skills on how to better use AI are required in all of them. So we've been really focusing on that for the last, I'd say 12 months or so. It's important because when we think about it, we don't see AI as replacing work. It's really more redefining it, right? And so we're operating from that belief that every graduate is walking into an AI influenced role, whether they're in business, healthcare, or tech, right?
Well, I think that's super cool because, typically, well, you hear it a lot on the news and everybody's grappling with, and by everybody, I mean, every, educational institute is grappling with how do we do this? How do we continue to teach kids the way that we've always taught them and make sure they're not using AI? And to me, that makes no sense. The whole point of, especially a university, at least a large portion of what it's there for, is to help people get jobs afterwards. So it doesn't make sense to keep them from AI if they're going to go into an AI-powered job market. Like, how are they going to be competitive if they are having the same education that somebody had 20, 30 years ago? Doesn't make any sense. So I love that you guys are really integrating that into everything so that people are more prepared for that. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, we really believe that not everyone needs to be an AI engineer, but every single person is going to need to know how to use it effectively, right? And the most interesting thing about the world of AI is that those durable skills that are prized by employers, right? Critical thinking, the ability to problem solve, all of those are still required to use AI effectively.
And I think that's kind of the brilliance of it, right? Is in that you do have to still think critically. You do still have to do the planning and do all of those human skills. But the actual use of AI to help, propel the work, that's a useful skill that people have to learn. Like you said, whether it's in accounting or your coding, you name it, it's kind of, touching everybody's job right now. And I think it's really important. So how do you go about that? Like, can you walk us through a little bit, like what that looks like in a course? Because I think everybody's very familiar, obviously, with how it works without AI, right?
Yeah.
You go in, you learn the stuff and you regurgitate it and great. Hopefully you remember it, 3 months, 6 months, a year from now. But how does it work with AI? It's where some people are thinking, well, you're cheating if you're using AI because you didn't do the work yourself. What's the DeVry kind of, competitive advantage, the difference there?
Yeah. Yeah, really what we're focused on is practical exposure, right? We are working to help the students evaluate how they leverage the tool to get strong outputs, and how do you decide that you get strong outputs, and how do you go further your analysis, right? What we're avoiding is this. I think the term that I've heard most recently is AI slop, right? We are being very deliberate in how we guide our students to use the technology, right? So we have it, but we firmly believe though that if you don't have practical kind of meaningful ways to use AI, then when you hit the workforce, then you're going to be at a disadvantage, right? We're already seeing real challenges for some entry level roles, and we need to make sure that those folks understand how to leverage this powerful tool to put themselves in an advantage, right?
Yeah. No, 100%. That's fantastic. I really think everybody should be taking that approach. And I get that it's challenging, right? A lot of universities focus on kind of teaching people so that they can think and process information differently. And that's really the goal of education, is learning how to think. And if you're letting AI do the thinking for you, well, then that's where you're kind of screwing up. You're just kind of passing time and you're passing everything off to the AI. And I love the approach that you're taking of, no, no, you still do the thinking, but it's how do you leverage AI to kind of get the job done and be better at what you're doing and be competitive when you get out to the workforce. So kudos. I think that is the first time I've heard this. We've had I don't know, at least 150 CIOs on a number of universities. And, of course, everybody's always listening to these debates on, online and in the news about AI in schools and all the things they're doing to keep kids from cheating. And I think this is absolutely the right way to go about it. I applaud you guys for taking that approach. And I really hope more people see this and start emulating it, because I think that is definitely got to be the way of the future. You just can't fight it. The genie's out of the bottle. There's no going back. And so how do you adapt? And I think you guys have nailed it. So let me ask you a question. Yeah,
Mm.
on the CIO side of things,
Yeah.
how does that change what you're doing? We've had a lot of CIOs on talk about how they're trying to integrate AI into their stack, but now you're using it, not only internally, as you kind of mentioned, but you're empowering the students to use it as well. Does this change anything in terms of from the perspective of the CIO, how you manage that, or it's
It certainly has put a renewed focus on the upskilling and helping drive AI literacy within our own organization, right? And so we've taken some lessons learned and moved through that, right? So we've not only committed to like our DeVry curriculum, but also to ensuring that our colleagues are all upskilled and oriented and have access to the tools that will help them be more effective, right? And again, we used to teach very technical skills, right? How to do this, how to create a variable, how to move data from here to there. And what we're seeing shift is really this kind of critical evaluation and more time spent on understanding risks, like bias and et cetera. And frankly, some of the early planning we're even seeing move into the functional areas where it used to be strictly, the architects getting in a room and figuring out things. We're starting to see better requirements, better understanding of the problem and potential solutions coming from our partners across the university, which makes the delivery dramatically faster and better. Right. So,
yeah.
From my perspective, what AI is bringing to the table is fairly powerful and frankly fraught with some risk. And so it's good. The more we have knowledge and literacy across the university, the better off we all are.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think one of my favorite areas with AI, I mean, obviously there's so many great benefits, but I think what's really exciting is AI in cybersecurity. So we're starting to see, I mean, we've seen tools like Darktrace, really cool use of machine learning in cybersecurity, and it's kind of the right use of the right kind of AI to do the right thing. And you see some really powerful, cool stuff there. And then you see things like, traditional security products where they just bolt on an LLM and they're like, "Yay, it's AI powered." And it's like, yeah, but now you've got prompt injection, possibilities and all
Right.
kinds of other things. So I think things like things like Darktrace and Abnormal, you see these products that kind of give us, I think they give us a glimpse into the future of where AI can take us when it comes to cybersecurity and how it can really be so much more impactful. And we already see huge gains in things like that. They're just leaps and bounds better than the traditional security products. So I'm kind of curious, on your side, where do you see this going? Like, is this easy? Things like this, integrating AI into security and other aspects of the university, is this an easy thing to kind of to do, or is this something where it's taken with great caution to say, hey, look, we appreciate where it's going, but right now it's kind of it's early days and we're stepping back because I think a lot of people are in that boat where they're like, well, how do I? And there's a billion products out there. Every day there's 100 more. And I was like, well, I've only got so much time. And so how do you go and manage that? Because on top of having to stay on top of this very fast moving industry. I don't think we've ever seen anything advance as quickly in the history of mankind. And now, as a CIO, it's everything that is on your shoulders. You're supposed to be the subject matter expert, know everything about the alpha and omega of IT knowledge. How do you stay on top of it and balance that? Because that it's a lot, right?
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I think, and you're right. I've been in the industry for a few years, and I haven't seen anything move at this pace either. One of the things we did early days when the news broke, one of the first things we actually stood up an organization internally we call AI Labs, and we run all of our AI initiatives through there. So it helps with prioritization. It helps ensure we've got an ROI to chase. It helps us to scale our initiatives, right? And this is security or otherwise, right? But the idea being that there are a million things that you could chase. And I am very interested in how we scale the technology to support the university on the cyber side or otherwise. But one of the things that we're starting to see is um, uh, I would call it the kind of the LLM war, right? Where we're putting AI in on one end and the bad guys putting AI in on the other end,
Yeah.
and these things are starting to compete with each other, which is a frightening aspect of this, at least as far as I'm concerned. So we tend to be super deliberate in our pace. We ensure, like I said, that we have clear ROI and that we can at least see a roadmap to scale. And then we may test something, right? We have we've looked and used actually abnormal and pretty good, right? But there's probably for that one, there's a dozen that just did not just didn't produce what we had expected, right? And
Yeah.
so my bigger fear is to be honest, the intersection of quantum computing and AI, I am that one makes me nervous, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a step change difference, right?
Yeah, no, that's gonna that's a game changer. And it's I think you're right. It's a scary thing because it's so unknown. I think a lot of people are worried about, well, will AI take our jobs? I
Yeah,
think for the foreseeable future, there are going to be more jobs. It's going to be just like the early days of the internet. At
yeah,
some point, will robots and AI be able to do everything? Sure, sure. But we got time on that one. When quantum computing and is really viable, and in
yeah,
that changes everything, right? The encryption is no longer,
yeah,
like having quantum resistant encryption becomes a real thing. And I
yeah,
think what's really interesting is what a lot of governments have been worried about is the fact that other governments are stealing large amounts of data now that's encrypted, and that's fine because all they're doing is holding this until the day when they've got quantum computers and they can decrypt it all very quickly. So using that, kind of the current quantum resistant encryption becomes really important to start pushing that. And I think it's fascinating that a lot of the government's focused on that, but we've not seen a lot of that on the commercial side, right? And I don't know if that's right, wrong, or indifferent, right? I guess at the end of the day, we're in this funny time, right? Where all this information, because have been so many breaches, it's like, well, your information's gotten out there, and there's like what's really private now. So we're in this funny stage where you still have to fight for privacy and to try to keep things cleaned up, but at the same time, how much has been kind of leaked out into the wild already by the bad guys. I mean,
Yeah.
every day there's a new breach and a petabyte of information has been, and it was, it's all
Right.
filled with social security numbers and PII. And it's like, so, I mean, you're right. It is really scary. And then when you combine the two,
Yeah.
I don't game, set, match, I think. You're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. It's going to be really interesting, right? I think, but, a little bit cycling back to your question around, cybersecurity is still one of the most in-demand fields that we see, right? And the nature of the work though is changing rapidly, which is what AI is doing to it, right? There's a lot less focus on the kind of manual monitoring, right? The room of security analysts watching the boards, right? And really a lot more energy on understanding kind of the systems, understanding what threats are and how they materialize through the workflows of an organization and working with these automated tools, right? That's why we both externally for our learners and for us, we prioritize that kind of hands-on experience, lots of labs, lots of simulations, real world scenarios, right? And helping our students build that mindset when we're building our own, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, and that's fantastic because I think that's really kind of the difference, right, between DeVry and a lot of other universities in that they take a much more traditional, let's say, academic approach to it,
Right,
whereas you're taking the very much, hands-on, this is what's happening in the world today. Let's get you up to speed so that you can be an asset when you get out there and and you go, join some company or organization. You're now very capable and you don't have years of, oh, let me learn about that. I don't know. Academically, I heard about that, but we didn't really
yeah,
dive into it. So
right.
no, that's fantastic. I think that's really, really important. And I think it's cool that you guys are doing that kind of in real time together because it's not like you have the time to take
Right.
AI and learn all about it and then put together a course. And then, I mean, it used to be funny that every time they'd print an encyclopedia, by the time it was printed, oh, it's out of date. Sure,
Right.
but you had all this information. And that was, going back to like the 80s.
Right.
Now, you couldn't even consider it, right? Now everything changes so quickly that by the time you learn about AI, if you're putting together a course, it's now outdated, right?
Right.
Everything is changing in real time. So I love that lab approach. Yeah.
The pace of higher education is an interesting one, right? In higher education, we are a industry that still wears and celebrates big milestones in medieval robes, right? And
Right.
here we are. So that kind of speaks. Higher ed isn't the fastest moving of ships, right? And they
Yeah.
don't turn on a dime easily. And that's the whole infrastructure of how it works. And we find ourselves kind of um, um, working to figure out how to pivot and bring this to bear, this rapidly changing technology to bear more quickly. And many universities are doing this very successfully, right? As is DeVry and others. But it is a shift. Make no mistake, it's a foundational kind of shake the foundation of your building kind of shift, right?
Well, and let me ask you, how's that been received on like the student end? Is that something where they really appreciate that? They kind of like more of the I wish it was more, here's the information, learn it and take the test and you can get your grade. What's the kind of reception to this been? Because this is new. I mean, this
Yeah.
isn't something that's 10 years old.
You're always going to have those students that want to just, ingest the information, take their assessment and get going. But the students that are really hungry for development, that see the road, which is the majority, right? They see the road to their career through this lens. They are very excited about the opportunity to work with this technology, perhaps the first time they've had an opportunity to put their hands on something. They are our students are the DeVry student is very almost all of them have full-time jobs. They are very adult, older than traditional kind of college age students. They're all working adults, and they really resonate with the opportunity to learn something today that they can take to work with them tomorrow. And that's comes from that career focus, kind of how we do, right? One of the things we've learned at DeVry over the years that's probably important here is that, early exposure makes the biggest difference, right? When the student can see how, right, and they can see folks that look just like them doing it, right, it changes their trajectory, right? And that's one of the reasons we pile on to the academic with mentorships and outreach opportunities to create these kind of connectivity moments, right, early in their transformation. So.
I mean, that's fantastic. But let me ask you, how does that work kind of on the grading side of things, right? I mean, it's like, does that, just you look at any kind of traditional, like, oh, write a paper, but, I'm assuming that that's not really the focus anymore, right? How do you transition from kind of that write a paper to use AI to help, you solve this problem? What's that look like, at
Yeah.
DeVry when you're using AI to help you do things? How's the grading done?
Frankly, we leverage AI on both sides of the equation. One of the things we would say is that, look, academic integrity is still a thing. It's still important. And one of the ways that DeVry addresses that head on is by building the learning opportunities for our learners in a way that really requires critical thinking, deep thinking, that requires the problem solving and organization skills that don't necessarily come when you ask ChatGPT or Claude a question, right? And so, and our faculty also lever AI platforms to help with the grading, right? To help with the assessing of how they're doing. Right now, it's like when you were young learning math, show your work, right? There's a lot of that show your work. How did you get there? Does it make sense, et cetera? And I think it's challenging us all. But our faculty are up to the challenge, and our students are doing great. We really haven't seen a lot of what I would call bad actors, right? There's some, right?
Yeah.
But we really haven't seen a ton of it.
That's great. Well, let me ask you, using your crystal ball, looking down the road, what do you think, this looks like in the coming years? Are we kind of on the same path? Does it just continue like this? You've embraced AI and integrating into the learning, or do you see it changing dramatically as AI becomes even more and more powerful and kind of, how does that affect the future of learning, do you think?
I think it continues down this road a bit. That said, the focus on skills is a real thing, and it will continue to be more and more a focus on discrete skills. Also, we believe that what folks call soft skills, but at DeVry we refer to them as durable skills because they're the ones that are going to carry you across your career arc, right? And if you have those skills, if you can think deeply about items, if you can evaluate critically, if you can assess information, if you can fact check, if you can do all of those things, if you can interact with other people, humans, if you know how to collaborate with workers. And here's an interesting one. If you think about what agentic AI is doing right now, how do you collaborate with a digital worker while you're trying to collaborate with a human worker, right? So that all types of things that I think are headed our way. So that I don't believe this is going to stand still. I think it's going to keep us on our toes.
It was funny. I was reading an article. I want to say it was like I don't know. It might have been Forbes, Fortune, one of these, but they were talking about when Microsoft first introduced Copilot internally, and they'd done their assessment after like 3 or 4 months. They looked at the stats and how this was implemented, and of course you had those kind of the power users, and it was small. It was like 10 to 15% of people. They were using it heavily, and they continue to use it heavily all throughout. Even after 3 or 4 months, they were power users. The other 85% of the users, they used it initially, and then they kind of dropped off. And they dove into it because this wasn't what they were expecting, right? They get that about other technology, but they weren't really expecting that here. And what they found was that the people who were those power users, they treated AI like it was like an intern, a new employee. They managed it, they led it, and they communicated with it, and they taught it what it needed to know to be that, and so they treated it just like an employee. The people who were like, okay, write this email, do this thing, move. It's just easier for me to do it because you're just a new intern, and I need this done for the meeting tomorrow. So I'm just going to do it. And that was the huge divide. And I think to your point of, being able to communicate with your agentic AI and treating them more like a human and leading them, I think that is the future. And I think people grapple with that right now. They're used to technology being like, spit it out, give me that thing, and they want AI to just do the work for them. Super easy. Reply to this email. Oh, cool. That was about what I'd say. Let me just tweak that. Great. But when you start getting into more complex tasks and you start talking about workflows and your higher level of thinking and bigger projects, communication is really important. You can't just say, build me a website. What do you want on your website? I can build you a website, but even the world's best, web developer, they need direction,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so I think that's such a great approach that you're taking of being like, building those soft skills, right? The durable skills, as you call them, and then also looking forward to training people to use, AI the right way.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, how do you at DeVry kind of integrate those? Is it separate courses for the soft, durable skills, or is it something you integrate into every course where you're like, hey, group projects, right? The whole being an adult working it's all group projects, right? So how are how do you manage that? Is it separate
Yeah.
courses or into everything?
No, it's one of those durable skills are so important. We work to affect and improve those over your life cycle with DeVry University. Whether you're coming to us for a certificate that stacks into an associate's degree that stacks into your bachelor's degree, right? We continue to refine as you go throughout your journey with us and provide opportunities for you to practice those skills. And so yeah, whether it's a group project or whether it's co-curricular work or whether it's just ensuring how you can articulate how you came to your conclusions, right? Which I think is, by the way, one of the ways you really help ensure it's the students putting in their work is that kind of ensure that you can articulate how you got where you were going, and that's important, I think. But no, durable skills are embedded across our curricula.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's, no matter what happens with AI, that's going to be the differentiator, right? Do you have those communication skills, the people skills, which I think, as we're kind of discussing, translates into those communicating with AI skills,
Yeah.
right? It's all tied in. And I think a lot of universities well, it's easy to go to the university and not study those things. It's easy. Like math,
Yeah.
you could go and you don't need them, but you
Right.
do, right? I mean, maybe not to the same degree that, somebody in a business setting would need communication skills. But I think it's so important. And I love that that's built into all of your curriculum and trying to build that up in people, because I think that's critical. As AI gets better, the thing that makes us more valuable as human beings will be those soft skills.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny because we've seen technology be a bit of a hindrance to some of the younger generations in that that they grew up, texting people instead of calling. And so there was, a generation or two that kind of struggled with those soft skills. And I think we're seeing that kind of the pendulum is shifting. I think for whatever reason, they're naturally the younger kids are going back to that. And I think it's swung too far and they're like, that's weird. And they're getting back to it. I mean, they don't go outside and get to play all day like we did, right? When we were kids, it was go outside and play until the street lights come on and then come in. Now we're acutely aware of how dangerous it is outside, and that's just insane, right? But I think that, we learned those soft skills by having to kind of interact with people. And so I just think it's great what you guys are doing there and in integrating that. Super
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we think we're approaching it right. I think when I think about things at large, right, and I take a step back, right, that common thread for us is just relevance, right? We're at DeVry, we're really focused on making sure that what we're teaching aligns with where the workforce is going. AI is durable skills is still, right? AI is another focus area, but at the end of the day, the superpower for AI is context. Context of your customer, context of your customer, context of your customer, context of your company, right? Any of those types of things, that's where the real power is. We have already seen, I'm sure you've read all about vibe coding and all of those things that are going on there, but I can tell you if you don't know how to architect a software platform that is secure, functional, and reliable, vibe coding is not going to be that much help at the end of the day, and you're going to end up with some challenges. We've already seen that. No doubt that it's an accelerator, right, for getting work done. But those fundamentals, those foundations, the understanding that still is the superpower, right? And so our adult workers already have that superpower. So what DeVry is working to do is just amplify it, help you amplify it, so you can do even more. Right? AI is accelerating change, but the fundamentals matter. You got to be
Yeah.
adaptable, critical thinking, continuous learning. That's what's going to carry you across that career arc.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that strikes me is that you're so focused on, and I mean you specifically are so focused on the operation of the organization. And I think that's been a big shift in, lately, for a lot of CIOs. If you go back, 10, 20 years, it was, it really was the department of no, like, look, for security reasons, we can't do that. I know you want to do this, you want this new thing, but we got to check it out. We got to do all these things. And now it really has become gotten to the point where, and you clearly embody this, where it's how we are a part of this organization. We're an important part. How do we help the organization achieve the goals? And that I think is really clear in how you're communicating about the student curriculum and how you've organized things to help expedite that, instead of standing in the way and be like, well, we really have to look at the security, end of this, and that opens us up to a lot of things.
Yeah.
But your focus is clearly getting the job done, which I think is really commendable.
Yeah, well, thank you. You have to do both, though, right? But I will tell you, as a CIO, I spend a lot more time talking about student success and persistence than I do about, what data center we're in, right? And or, are we going to use Google productivity apps or Microsoft productivity apps, right? Those are just not super relevant conversations when you look at the outcomes and the mission, the reason that we're here, right? It's really focused on our students. And so, our challenge, and I think this is probably most CIOs today, is to figure out how to do both, right? How do we chart that course? And it's partly what's driving this, kind of resurgence of the generalist in IT, somebody who knows a lot about knows a little about a lot of things, and then can leverage some of these wonderful tools to help go deep when they need to, right? And I think, yeah, it's an interesting time. I will say that, right?
Yeah. Oh, no, for sure. I think we live in the best time in human history. I mean, it by far the the most interesting, the fastest paced. I mean, the wealthiest, right? I mean, with thanks to all this technology, we're building more global wealth than ever before, and this is just going to continue to accelerate. It's just the most exciting time. I mean, I think I wouldn't. Who knows what's going to happen in 10 years, 20 years? But I think this is just such a cool time to be, to be in technology. It's really exciting. And for you, especially being able to be there and help others get into it and adapt and use the technology in the workforce. I think you guys are doing a hell of a good job and really preparing people for, to be that much better in the workforce versus they just got a diploma. Great. That might make you, that might open you up for a promotion. That might be nice, but so much better when you're giving them real skills that are going to be very valuable and make them so much more competitive and just all around better for their organization. So good for you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Of course. Well, Chris, this has been an absolute blast. I think we could do this all day. It's been such a pleasure having you on. But before we go, can you tell everybody where they can find out more about you and more about DeVry?
Yeah, sure. So DeVry.edu, www.devry.edu is a great place to start. You can find out all the exciting things that we're doing and that we're helping focus on the workforce. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also on the DeVry.edu side. I'm always available to talk about these things. It's the intersection of technology and humanity is just an incredibly interesting space. And I have the privilege of waking up every morning thinking about how to help learners create career mobility and stay and stickiness throughout their career, right? Whether it's a pivot or a promotion or a start from scratch, right? All of those things. So yeah, but we look forward to anybody that wants to reach out. We'd love to talk to you.
Fantastic. Well, Chris, thanks so much. And until next time.
Thank you. You have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.